You have an idea. You want to tell it to the world, but you don't know where to start. That's where Anchor comes in. They have the tools for you to edit, produce, and record your idea right from your phone or computer. It's the easiest way to reach and grow your audience. They publish for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms. And to top it all off, they match you with advertisers so you can earn from your passion and your wonderful idea. So tell me, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and follow your dream. Happy New Year, everyone. Today is the first podcast of 2019, and we're going to be talking about resolutions. We really hope that you enjoy this podcast and that you share it. So today we're going to be discussing the topic of resolutions. Everyone does them, or most people do. And we're going to be talking about the one that most people choose, which is health. Either going to the gym or having a balanced diet, and kind of sharing a couple of the tips that we are going to need to keep those resolutions. And maybe they are correlated as well with other things or other matters, other resolutions that you may have that are not related to health. But we have invited Steven Sigamani to talk to us about health and about resolutions for this topic throughout 2019. How's it going, Steven?
How's it going, Jose? Doing pretty well, man.
Glad to hear that. Well, I'm doing well. It's the first podcast of 2019, and we're excited to have you.
Appreciate you inviting me, man.
Now, tell me a little bit more about yourself and who you are, and why should we trust you in health?
Well, my name is Steven Sigamani. I'm a pastor in the Florida Conference. When it comes to why you should trust me, it's really just a regular guy, really just trying to attain the same goals. I'll touch on it a little bit more as we go on, but health is an important component of my life. And I'm not a trainer. I'm not, I don't have a degree in anything, but I can share from my own experience what my journey's been like. And I'm just excited to just engage and have a conversation right now.
So let's start by kind of analyzing a little bit. What's your resolution for this year? Like, what are some of the things the goals that you have in mind, professional or maybe otherwise, personal?
Well, my wife and I just a couple of weeks ago sat down and just made a whole list of goals that we wanted to accomplish. Just various different things. One of them being physical goals. We really want to kind of move beyond where we've been as far as physically. We tend to go to the gym pretty often, but this year we wanted to make like more specific goals. Okay, this is what we want to accomplish. Then, when it came to our relationship, we want to spend more time with each other. We want to be more intentional about our relationship with God and things of that nature, and really just to stretch ourselves. And I think that's really what the goal of a new year is. And when a new year comes, people always want to, I guess it's a time to start over. And so they see that, this is an opportunity for me to start afresh. And so we're right in line with everybody else when it comes to that. And so.
Good. Now, do you remember the first time that you decided to put health as a part of your New Year's resolution?
Yeah, I remember I was actually about 11 years old, and I grew up a chubby kid. By some ways, my mom's a really good cook, and I grew up in a household where, and you've experienced this before, where all your family is kind of like, hey, make sure you eat everything on your plate, make sure you get seconds and thirds. It's important. It's part of keeping the family together in some ways. And so, yeah, I grew up having good food, pretty often, and not necessarily the greatest genetics. And so I grew up being a chubby kid, and I always, I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to be athletic and fit, but I never really was able to do that. But when I was 11, I set a goal to say, all right, I want to be able to run the court, back and forth, without getting tired. At 11 years old, I was a little heavier than I should be. And so basketball was what I loved to do. So my motivation was, all right, I want to be able to run the court, be able to play the whole game without being tired. And I used to get this pain on my side, which really meant that I was, really out of shape. And I said, I don't want that pain anymore. So that's where I really decided to do that. And I began running all the time, like sprints. And yeah, that was the first time I really decided I was going to do something about it and actually accomplished it.
Okay, so what about the other times?
I think I don't know. I think it was maybe, I think when it comes to fitness or when it comes to setting goals, there's like an intrinsic motivation that exists as well as an extrinsic motivation. And I think, even at the young age of 11 years old, I kind of had to make that decision. Am I going to be motivated because I have close friends that can outrun me, or that they're really talented, they can eat whatever they want, and they don't really seem like they're dealing with weight like I was? Or am I going to make an intrinsic goal to say, you know what, I'm going to push and work as hard as I need to do to accomplish what I want to? I know maybe it's harder for me, but I'm deciding that I'm going to dedicate the time that I need to accomplish that goal. And so we really kind of wrestle between intrinsic and extrinsic. And that's really where I learned that, when I was 11 years old, just like, okay, I love basketball. This is what I love to do. And everybody else doesn't really have to work as hard. But I realized that I personally need to really work hard. And so I set that goal and I was able to accomplish it. So when basketball season came around, I was running really well. So that was really my first time.
Now, you touched on a very important topic, and that's time. You mentioned that, develop the time. At 11 years old, you probably had time, to kind of like go to the gym and do things and maybe play basketball a couple of hours extra. But someone listening right now will be like, I don't have that kind of time anymore.
Yeah, and I'm not 11.
Right. You're not 11 anymore, but I mean, maybe, have you stayed fit all throughout these years?
I would say that, well, really, like, my story is really, I think I got like, to be honest, I really got kind of like skinny, basically, like more like in shape when I was like 14. And that was really like, in some ways, the end of puberty. That was really like, I kind of lost some of my baby fat, and that's really where, and I really think ever since 15, my body's undergone changes, but I think I've stayed relatively healthy. But I think I've made different strides, at different points. So in some ways, yes, because I think when you're a teenager, though, like when I was 14, 15, then I kind of had the luxury of being able to eat whatever I want at any time I want. And so I got to experience what that was like. But then as I got older, you get into college and you're like, oh, like this is, it's not as easy. And then I get to the point now where I'm a professional. And yeah, life is not set up for you to be active. If you work in an office or you work I don't know. Oh, goodness. You're working in an office or you're working just in a situation where it's not your job to really stay fit. It's difficult to do that. And in some ways, you really have to be intentional to say, all right, I want to create an active lifestyle. And that's what I've had to try to do even from college.
So what is an active lifestyle? I mean, like, let's say I don't have time. I'm sitting in an office, or maybe, I don't know, I am just mindlessly working on projects, or maybe in school, I go to class, I sit down, a lot of people go through that. Or maybe they have kids, and they don't find the time to do things. How do we develop an active lifestyle?
Yeah, I think number one, like it's really being able to identify like what can you accomplish realistically? Because I think a lot of times when a new year comes around, we want to set a huge goal, where we're like, oh, I'm going to run a full marathon, or I'm doing Ironman, and you can barely, run a mile. Like, try to set a realistic goal. And I think if you're kind of in a lifestyle with a family, with children, with a 40 to 50 hour work week, try to identify one goal where I'm going to change this one component of my life. If you realize, you're struggling to wake up, you're always tired, and you're not really finding energy until you have coffee, ask yourself, okay, so what can I do to kind of change that? Do I need to go to bed earlier? Start finding a small point to say, all right, I'm going to make this step and begin to change my life in that way. And maybe it's, oh, well, I don't have time to, go on an hour-long jog or spend an hour and a half at the gym. What if it's, okay, instead of choosing to drive somewhere that I know I could walk or that I could bike, if you're beginning to take those incremental steps towards a healthier lifestyle is really what it takes. And then even in a lot of what you do, it goes beyond exercise too. It's also health and diet, and saying, okay, where I could just go out to eat and grab a cheeseburger or grab something really quick. Why don't I say, I'm just going to take something with me? I'm going to make a salad at home. Or I'm going to make rice and beans, something that's healthier, along those lines. That's also cheaper. Whereas instead of going and getting French fries and a burger or pizza or something.
Now you're touching upon a different topic, and you're saying, affordability, kind of like talking about health, talking about goals. But before we kind of get into that route and kind of get to talk about diet, I kind of want to pick your brain on why do you think people fail? I mean, like, people sign up to the gym in January, and statistics kind of tell us that it's about 80% that drop by 5 months. So they're able to do it for 5 months, but why do people fail? Or maybe you can share about your experiences. Why have you failed to accomplish your goals?
I think sometimes when we set goals, we really like expect something to happen immediately. I've experienced it as well, and I've had other friends that have, where you set a goal, I'm going to go to the gym, every single day, and I'm going to change the way I eat. I'm only going to eat, super healthy food, organic. I'm going to go vegan or whatever. They set these goals, and maybe after the first month or two, they're seeing the changes, and they're excited about them. But oftentimes you hit a wall where it's more difficult. Your projects are piling up, work is piling up, and then you're also not really getting as far as you want to in the gym. You're not saying in the gym you're not seeing the results that you saw in the first month, and you're saying, oh, well, I guess it's not really helping. I'm going to give up, or I'm going to try to jump to the next fad, or try to say, oh, let me try something else, or you just fall back into the same rut that you're used to falling into. And I think that our experience with stuff like that is really kind of many ways also speaks to sometimes how we are as people. Like, we always want things to happen immediately, and not realizing that it's really the same effort that you put in when you're seeing the results. You really need to do it when you're not really sure if you're making the same impact. And then there's also, just the component of, okay, maybe I need to adjust what I'm doing. Maybe I need to push myself a little bit farther, instead of, because we, as humans, we tend to always fall into ruts, and we want to be with what we're comfortable with, and realizing, I need to push myself beyond this point. And when it comes to like a New Year's resolution, maybe sometimes we don't know our long-term goal, and we don't know our short-term goal. And that's something that I've had to do, is say, where do I want to be, 50 years from now? Like, why do I going to the gym is not just something that I do because I want to look good, to go to the beach, but it's really something that I do. Okay, I want to look good because, 50 years from now, when I'm going to be old anyway, I still want to be healthy. I want to be able to run around with my grandkids, whatever that is. So setting that long-term and short-term goal. And I think when a year comes along, we kind of decide, okay, well, this is where I want to get to. And if I'm not able to get there, then maybe it's not worth it. Or maybe it's just, I've gotten there and that's it. And your goal really isn't something that maybe feeds into what you want to accomplish long-term. So there's a lot of different factors. So it's hard to like just say, point blank. But I think that's kind of what I've seen and what I've experienced as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is a degree of, vision that needs to be accomplished before, you kind of start setting up the goals. But it's so easy. I mean, so easy to say like, okay, this year I'm going to be vegan, or this year I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a day. I mean, I'm sorry, a week.
5 times a day.
Yeah, that'll be a lot. But five times a week, and I think that you may lose the vision for things that may be further, that may need to go into the long-term plan.
Yeah, and the reality is people don't a lot of times fall out of it because they're intending to not go. Like, you don't wake up in the morning saying, I don't want to exercise. I don't want to be healthy. Sometimes it just happens as a result of being too busy, and it's not prioritized. And I guess there's an old adage where people say, you make time for things that are important to you, and kind of realizing like maybe over time, like, taking care of yourself, whether that's health-wise or fitness-wise or whatever, kind of falls down the list because other things have taken precedence over it. And that's maybe not in and of itself negative, but it is having a negative impact on your life. So being able to kind of reevaluate what you want to do. And that's why New Year's resolutions are so popular, because people are doing that because they view it as a new beginning. But, by the time, like you said, by the time April, May comes around, or even February for some, you kind of fall off. So
I agree. Yeah. Another component of New Year's resolutions that, right now everyone's talking about accountability, right? That's important. It's very crucial for you to have accountability in order to live, or, to live out your New Year's resolution. But do you think that that's extremely important, or do you think that you can find that accountability in yourself or different? Is it necessary to have it with other people? And is it realistic to have it with other people that may not be in your area? Or like, people go on Facebook or like, they say, oh, hey, keep me accountable. I actually did that, like, kind of a thing. Because my New Year's resolution is to keep one phone.
Good luck.
Like if anyone knows me, and this sounds like a very first world problem, it doesn't get more first world than this, but one thing that I have struggled over the years is keeping one phone. Like literally I've switched many times, like, and I'm like,
many times in a week.
Yes, many times in a week sometimes. And it sounds terrible, but my New Year's resolution is to do that. And I put it on Facebook, and a lot of people do that. But, I feel like you maybe need to first be accountable to yourself, and maybe like with someone that can actually keep you accountable, maybe like an external source. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, like kind of like that intrinsic decision making versus your extrinsic decision making. And yeah, accountability is a huge component, especially when it comes to health, saying like, oh, this is my gym partner, or this is my cooking partner. I don't know, something along those. Like you have somebody that's kind of keeping you accountable. But what you have to ask yourself before you even get into that is, what happens when they go out of town? What happens when they're sick? What happens when they give up? Is the goal that you want to accomplish as important to you, whether they're there or not? And that's where it gets difficult. And I think accountability is great. That's in every facet of our lives. Because health is a holistic thing. It's your mental, it's your spiritual, it's your physical, it's emotional. It's great to have, people that are there walking on that journey with you. But then there are times where like you decide whether, all right, I'm going to take this step to, to make this change in my life. And you can't blame somebody else when you're not making the change if you didn't decide to do your part. And so it's a difficult way to manage it in some ways, but accountability and having a partner can be good. Especially when it's done right, when you're both saying, all right, we want to accomplish this goal and we're looking out for each other. But sometimes life doesn't always work out. Like I've had a bunch of different gym partners. I've had a bunch of different people that set goals with me, and, either, we end up moving or we end up at a different stage in life. And it's not a negative thing. It's just how things work out sometimes. So you still have to, set aside your goal and say, all right, I'm accountable to myself and accountable to God, as well as to this person, because, it can't just be dependent upon that.
Another area that you kind of touch on there was the idea that, health is holistic. Mm-hmm. And how does that look like? Why are these areas kind of interconnected?
Well, yeah, I mean, from a biblical perspective, like we believe like our body is created by God and there's multiple components to our body. And I think we tend to really sometimes maybe only focus on what we can see, how I look in the mirror, and yeah, how you look in the mirror measures how you what's going on within. But I think health is sometimes only boiled down to your physical ability or your diet, but your health is really a mental thing. Right now, a lot of people are discussing their mental health, but it's and maybe it's being over talked about, but I don't think it is, because I think for generations, people haven't really valued the importance of your mental health and taking time to say, okay, like I'm really wrestling with something, or there's something that's going on that I'm not dealing with in my mind and emotionally, and it's tough and that comes back maybe even to accountability, finding somebody that you can have counseling with, finding somebody to say, all right, I need to work through this issue. Because sometimes what may be affecting your physical life could be something mental or could be something emotional. Like you're wrestling with a loss or grief or just depression, and you're not able to really move past that. And that's important. It's still part of your health, and it's still part of what God intends for us to be healthy holistically, and then spiritually as well. If you're not taking that time to really just set aside dedicated time, uninterrupted time with God, then it affects the way that you do the rest of your life. And so, yeah, I mean, I believe that health is holistic in that sense.
I'm pretty sure that someone listening right now is like, this sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot of commitment, a lot of things that, I have to do, a lot of other things, because there's a lot of components, Now, you mentioned that you're a pastor, and, stereotypically, pastors are not the best. They're the best at preaching, about health and about, being, especially in Adventism, like, you got to be vegetarian.
Health message.
Yeah, exactly. You got to keep the health message and study the counsels and diets and foods and all of that from Ellen White or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But, you say you're a pastor and you go regularly to the gym. Mm-hmm. Why do pastors then don't go to the gym as often? Like, why don't you see them, lifting, hitting?
Why aren't they fit all the time? Yeah, I don't know, man. To be honest, I think I've seen, it's been a little bit, I can just say what it's been like for me. I was in school, my whole life until just this year when I started pastoring, and something about, being a professional and maybe, working and the schedule makes it a little difficult. And for me, it was difficult in the sense of trying to manage my time and say like, okay, I need to get through these tasks. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I also need to take care of my fitness. I also need to make sure I'm cooking something. I make sure I'm eating well, and as well as exercising, and as well as doing my own personal devotions and my own personal time. My self care. And I think that sometimes pastors don't always really, I guess, internalize maybe what we can speak about, and that's just a human flaw that I think doesn't bypass pastors in some ways. I think too the stress of ministry, the stress of expectations and what you have to do and time management and things like that can kind of get in the way of what they should be doing. And I think really just point blank, oftentimes the health message really just isn't. It's something that we talk about as like a talking point, but it's not really something that we implement into our lives. And maybe that's harsh, but it's kind of what I feel. We don't. It's kind of on this golden pedestal. We talk about it being the right hand of the gospel in some ways, but it's not really like, what does that look like? Oftentimes you walk into an Adventist potluck, and it's not really any healthier. I'd much rather eat meat and eat some of the things that are in a potluck, on a regular basis. And if your lifestyle is not really focused on that, saying, what am I going to do to take care of my body and have balance beyond that, then I don't know, the results are going to happen. And most people are getting older, unless you're not human, and then you're getting older. So it's going to be more and more difficult to stay fit, to stay focused, and to stay healthy. And like with every year, it gets more difficult. And when you're professional, I think being a pastor is very similar to, like we said, like The Office. If you don't set those goals and make it something that you do, then you're going to fall off, and you're going to end up. And there's also, funny point is, I have not received as much free food until I became a pastor. So there's a lot of like free food. People will send you stuff. You got to be able to manage that as well. For me, I got so many Christmas cookies. I was like, I don't even eat these. So yeah, that's another component as well.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's true. Pastors do visit a lot of homes, and they have a lot of time, at the table, I guess.
Yeah, sitting down at the table, yeah.
Hopefully praying maybe, but maybe we need to revolutionize that scene. Maybe take a walk with the pastor, or, Yeah,
that's actually something, just on that point, that's actually something that I've done as well. Just because I'm working with youth and young adults, pretty often most of them, it's weird to visit in their house in some ways. It's difficult to really do that. It's difficult to really visit them at school. But it's much easier for me to say, hey, let's go to the gym and work out together. Let's work out and talk and just, hang out in that way, or to, hey, let's take a walk, or let's go hiking. Let's do something active rather than me sitting down and you feeling as though I'm questioning you over something, or the other way around, but let's be active and move. And I've had so many visits, alongside of a bench press. We're just working out and we're talking about life and, building each other up spiritually. So it's not just something that has to be, and maybe, yeah, like you said, maybe that has to be reframing in how we do visitation, or reframing how we do ministry. Even with, we have a basketball ministry in our church, and being able to just connect with people in that way, on the court, being able to see a pastor working out with them in that way, and valuing that is just different than maybe the construct that we have of ministry. So
that makes sense. Well, our time is kind of running out at the moment, but I would like to touch on one more area that is about, resolutions, and that is just like how to stick it out. You talked a little bit about, like, having this intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and maybe someone's like, okay, Steven, I got it. I got the accountability. I got everything. But, maybe a couple of extra tips of how do you stick out your New Year's resolution. At the end of the day, it's just perseverance, to a certain degree, but there are methods, there are ways that we can maybe, continue going and other ways.
Okay, well, I would say, first would be, like, I think I kind of like maybe just to summarize, first would be to really decide, your long term and your short term. Long term, why do I want to do this? Like, what is this? How does this affect, who I am as a person, what my function is? Really decide that and say, this is my why, and really identifying that why and saying, this is the goal I want to do. Because I think when you have sight of that and you have an understanding of why you want to do something, you really are able to stick to it and be able to do it. It's hard. It's easier to manage when your partner says they can't be there, or when the group is in meeting, and you just say, you know what, this is something that I want to do, and you stick to that. And that's easier said than done. And as far as methods, I think along the way, try to make it fun. Something that I wrestled with a lot was, I turned vegan when I was in college, and I got like really militant about everything. Like I wouldn't, like, eating was not an exciting thing for me. Eating was like stressful because I'm like, I need to make sure that this, doesn't have any trace of milk, or this doesn't have, which you should try to do. But there was never like this sort of enjoyment when it came to food, enjoyment to shopping or eating. It was something that was like miserable for me. And so finding ways to enjoy it, looking up new recipes, looking up ways to be healthier and making it fun. Or even, a good example too would be like, if you hate, when you think of, I want to get more cardio, I want to exercise more. If you don't like walking or running on a treadmill, say, oh, let me go hiking, let me play basketball, let me do something that's fun to me, rather than, making it miserable. And also along the way, like, there's finding ways to reward yourself and appreciating, how far you have come. I think in life, we tend to be our harshest critic sometimes, and not really focus on, oh man, I've made strides to this point. I've advanced. And I think that's an important part, like really having positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement. And I'm saying that because that's difficult for me. I'm that way all the time. Like, I always tend to focus on the negative. And really, I would say, if you want to really accomplish something, really enjoy the process. Enjoy that and journey through it really well. And yourself. No one knows you better than you. And so you say, hey, if the one thing I'm missing is a partner, then find a partner. Or if the one thing that I'm missing is I need to get rid of all the junk food in my house, then do that. Then do the steps that you need to take, because we know ourselves better than anybody else does. So it's really simplistic, but I think at the same time, those are the things that we have to do, really understanding that it's up to me in some ways, and it's my journey with myself and God.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Steven, for being with us today and for speaking about this very important topic, just giving people some encouragement and some tips, and, kind of talking about the topic of New Year's resolution and health, since, that's one of the ones that most people try to improve throughout this year. And I wish you well. I mean, I wish everyone that's listening very well, like, throughout this year. I think, you can do it. I mean, we're encouraging you right now, and I hope that you find a community that continues to encourage you. As it is our tradition, we like to finish with a final word. So, Steven, give us the final word.
Well, yeah, I'll say that, never stop believing in yourself. I think too often we sell ourselves short, and like I said, a lot of what I'm saying is really speaking to me. Don't stop believing in things that you can accomplish. I think, don't let 2019 just be another year where you're saying, yeah, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to write it down on paper and not actually accomplish it. Really to sit down with yourself and say, all right, God, you and I, we're going to do this. This is what we want to do. Because I really believe, like, within each and every one of us is potential for us to be greater than we actually are. And so at the risk of preaching, I'll stop there. But yeah, just continue believing in yourself and stop selling yourself short. Because I know that that's just the way we are as humans, and that's what the rut we fall into. So.
Thank you for listening today. We appreciate that you have taken the time to listen to our podcast, and ask that you share it with others. Please leave a review on iTunes or your favorite podcatching app. If you're enjoying our content, we want to invite you to consider contributing to our cause by becoming a patron, where you will receive exclusive content, have the ability to sit down with the Disruptive Adventism team, and ask relevant questions for Adventism and society. If you're interested in contributing, head to patreon.com/disruptiveadventism. Another avenue for contribution is to purchase our merchandise through Amazon or tpublic.com. You can find the links to our merchandise on our Facebook or Instagram pages. We also hope that our content has intrigued you a little bit and that you decide to stay around for future podcasts. If you have any comments, feedback, or a topic you would like us to discuss, please go to our website at www.disruptiveadventism.org or shoot us an email to disruptiveadventism@gmail.com. We're eager to engage in discussions about any matter, so don't hesitate to contact us. This has been it for today. We hope you join us next time. And as always, we invite you to be disruptive.